it's they're so enthusiastic and so desirous of advancing that they miscalculate how long it takes to advance and how much strength they have, which would be kind of like going to the gym super enthusiastic and never really having lifted weights before, and you just see like 100 kgs and you're like, okay, let me lift that. And you're very enthusiastic and maybe, well, 100 is too much. Let's start with 50. And so maybe you get 50 a little bit off the ground, and maybe some of you guys can like push it, but maybe you pull a muscle doing it. And a lot of times in spiritual life, our enthusiasm exceeds our ability. And so we try to achieve more than we're actually able to according to our level of advancement. And then that's when we, if you want to use the word burnout or frustration or whatever, what's the Australian word for burnout? In America we say toasted, fried. Can you say that there? Fried. Fried, toasted. Fried's worse than toast. Burnt out. Yeah. Fried, toasted, burnt out. Yeah. So sometimes it takes a while to understand what you can do and what you can't do, and so that your desire to advance and your ability to advance, they may be off kilter, and it takes a while before you realize that, I want to be here, but I'm down here, because to be here I need to be up here. And so then you realize, I have to lower my goals a little bit that align with my ability. So I think the best word for this discussion is sustainability, because the saying, it's not how you start the race, it's how you finish. And so sustainability means maintaining a certain level of spiritual advancement that you can maintain correctly and steadily over a sustained period of time. And that's really the key. And so the real problem is balancing our desire to evolve spiritually with our capability to evolve spiritually. And sometimes that's difficult. And sometimes we don't know. And sometimes we think we can lift more weight than we actually can. And that's when burnout happens, because we surpass our own ability to achieve something. And so, like if you're going to go into a gym and you've never lifted weights, they'll probably start you with I don't know about women, but with guys, maybe they start you with 15 or 20 kgs probably. I don't know. I never lifted weights, but I'm sure I could manage 15 kgs or 20. So to start you, I'm like, well, how can you do that? How does that feel? You're like, it's okay. Okay, do 20. And, all right, can you do more? Yeah, that was light. Okay, we'll give you a little more. Do 20. Oh, that was a struggle. So now you're at that point where you can only do 20 with, let's say you're up to 30, 40 kgs, something like that. And so they'll say, can you do this? Can you do 20 with this steadily? And yeah, okay, so do it steadily and then build up gradually. And so it's kind of also like the saying, my eyes are bigger than my stomach. You must know that because we do it every day, right? Don't we? So, my eyes, this all looks good, I want to eat it, but my stomach, it doesn't fit it. So it's something like that. So when you study the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, it seems like boundaries would be antithetical to the process of developing Krishna consciousness, or antithetical to the process of surrender. But it's actually It's actually what Krishna says to do in the 6th chapter of the Gita. He says, Yuktahara viharasya, which means be balanced in your work, your recreation, your eating, your sleeping. So, and what Krishna says is don't eat too much, don't eat too little, but you can apply that to everything. Too much, extravagance, too little, less than necessary, less than required. Find the sweet spot, and the sweet spot will be different for all of you. So, boundaries are, the way I look at boundaries are like, if I try to go above a certain level and I'm not ready for it, it will not be good. If I try to reduce and go below a certain level and I'm capable of doing more, that also won't be good. So there's a sweet spot in between where you create your boundaries both on the bottom and the top. So does that make sense to you? It's like you find what's the best you can do and sustain that. That makes sense? Yeah. So there's a really interesting concept, and it's very common for us when we're trying to succeed at something. It's common that we will put efforts into it in such a way that we neglect something. And so we make a sacrifice of something to succeed at something else. So this is really important part of being balanced and creating boundaries. So one common thing for people is that for their career, they'll sacrifice something. They'll sacrifice time, they may sacrifice a relationship, they may sacrifice a hobby, they may sacrifice their health. Or to have a good relationship, they could sacrifice their career. It's possible. So, so what they're actually doing is they're willing to fail in one area of their life in order to succeed in another. I'll just neglect something in my life, put all my energy into one thing, and then other aspects of their life suffer. So we call that succeeding by failing. You've succeeded in one area by allowing yourself to fail in another area. And this is quite common. So when we talk about balance, then we're talking about taking care of all the essentials in our life and not overly stressing something at the cost of something else that's not important. Maybe you stress it at the cost of something that's not important. That's different. But stressing it at the cost of something that's important, it's not going to work. It's not sustainable. And then you suffer and you burn out because you've achieved success in one life and another area of your life has failed. Does that make sense to you? Have you ever done that before? Well, has anyone not ever done that before? That's a better question, isn't it? Yeah. So, I guess you're all probably wondering, well, how do I know? How do I know what's sustainable for me? And I don't think it's that difficult to know. At the same time, some of you are thinking, but I want to push myself. Or some of you may be thinking, I want to push myself, right? I want to do better. I don't just want to be like right the middle road. I want to be a little on the cutting edge, which is great. Inspiration. But it's not what I have seen happen. I'll give an example. What I've seen happen is when you push yourself too much and it's not sustainable, you have to make up for it. You have to like backtrack and do all the things you didn't do to get back to zero. And I'll give a simple example. If you neglect your health, what happens? You get sick, and then what happens? You have to take care of yourself. So all that time you didn't take care of yourself, or you didn't get enough rest and so forth, when you get sick, you go back and you do it. Usually more. You usually put more time into it. Have you had that experience before? You neglect yourself, and if you would have spent a half hour a day taking care of yourself, you would be perfectly fine. But because you don't, then you get sick, and then you spend 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days all day taking care of yourself. One common thing, I don't know if you have experience, but certainly you will, is in relationships. When we don't take care of relationships, they go sour. And then we have to put all this energy into trying to repair them, make them better. Have you experienced that? Like, a little work, a little communication in the beginning, ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Then it prevents, it's just, my experience is very common. You could do something to preventative or proactive in a relationship that would take you 15 minutes, but if you don't, you'll spend days, hours trying to repair for the mistakes you made. So we want to adopt that policy in life. So you're always in this spot which is sustainable, and so you want to create boundaries around yourself so you don't burn yourself out. One of the common things, maybe not for you so much, but because you're living on the temple property and you have some regular program, but when you're living more on your own, when you go back to wherever you're going, or you get married if you're not married, then it's like nobody's going to wake you up and say, go in the temple and chant like they do now. You don't get prasadam if you don't go to class, right? Is that it? Is that how it works? Something like that, right? So now when you're on your own, and maybe even now you have enough independence to make some of these decisions, that often the thing that goes first is the sadhana, the spiritual practice, because life gets busy and there's so many things to do and there's not enough time to do them, right? 24 hours is not enough. So for many devotees, if they're not careful, then they cut into their sadhana. So I'll minimize my sadhana so I can get other things done. And that's even true with service. Not just, just regular business you have to go through in your life, but it's even true with service. And one of the reasons is that we are not so trained. I don't want to say we're not disciplined, but we're not trained sadhana. I mean, to chant, for 2 hours, you have to be disciplined. To read, to study, you have to be disciplined. You know what it's like now. We're all distracted by 1-minute videos. So it's easy just to do something else. Easier than chanting. Well, I'll do something else, I'll chant later. So sadhana is it's like oxygen, it's like diet, it's like for the soul. And you know how we're raised like be productive, do something, get things done, and so forth. And it seems like when we're doing sadhana, we're not doing anything, but we are doing the most important thing, which is developing our relationship with Krishna. But it's easy to think, well, I'm not doing anything, let me do something. I feel good about myself when I do something. And if I'm just chanting or reading, maybe that doesn't seem like much. So, let me try to put this in context. In India, at least traditionally, religious people every day would go to temples, would do kirtan, would offer prayers, do some puja, do something, do puja at home, meditate, chant, like that. It was like ingrained in their life. It was a way of being. And in our culture, what do people do? They just get up, get ready, and go. They don't normally, maybe it's changing a little with people who do yoga and meditate, but generally most people just get up and go. Stay up late, wake up, get ready, have a little breakfast, if anything, and then go. Or, check their phone for messages and then go. So we're not so accustomed to that. We walk out that early morning, and that's the time when we do our sadhana. That's the time when we connect with Krishna. So that's really important. And then so when we go out of balance, that's one of the first things that gets compromised, because we're not so conditioned to do that. Often what else goes when we go out of balance, what also gets compromised is taking care of our health, proper eating, proper eating, exercise, like that. These things, sometimes the danger is that these things seem to get in the way of our goals. So no, I don't want to take care of my health, I want to minimize my spiritual life. It's getting in the way of my goal to achieve something. But it's really backwards, because our spiritual life and our physical health are fundamental to everything else in our life. So if we can develop the habit of making sadhana and good health part of our life, that's not our whole life, but part of our life regularly, so that we have that every day, that's going to make a huge difference in our life, and we'll be much happier and much more satisfied, because we're nourishing the soul. So I think also intuitively you kind of can sense when you're starting to burn out, you're neglecting your spiritual life, or you're doing sadhana but your mind is occupied with other things, and you can't really chant properly or study or cultivate your spiritual life because you've got so much going on in your mind. So you can kind of sense that tendency, if you ever feel that tendency just to do, achieve, and minimize your health or your sadhana, it's a little red flag should go off, or alarms should go off, and say, this is the path, this may be the path to burning myself out. Now, for some of you, too much sadhana will burn you out, because maybe you're not on the level where you can do a lot of chanting and reading. So if you do too much of that, which would be very good for one of you, for another one of you, it wouldn't be. So that's something to consider, because we're all on different levels. So, but the main point is that we want to take care of that sadhana, whatever it is, take care of the health, whatever it is, whatever we need. And as we said, what's sustainable for you. In our lives, we have not only sadhana and service, we have careers, we have relationships, we have finances, and each area really needs to be in balance as best we can. And if any one of those areas is neglected, that's when we burn out. And having burnt out many times, I'm just trying to think, how did I burn out? And I think most of the time I burned out by focusing on one thing and just working it, and kind of neglecting everything else. So if you want to burn out, that's a great way to do it. I have experience, Now, you might say, oh, but I really like this thing. But, I think it was Einstein who forgot. He was in the laboratory on his wedding day and he forgot he was getting married. Do you know that story? Was it Einstein or Schweitzer or one of them? Yeah, the scientist, was just so absorbed. His wedding day, forgot to show up. Minor detail, should have written it down on his iPhone, But anyway, so now, if we look at Srila Prabhupada, we find something quite unusual about him. He was very precise about what he would do and when he would do it. And he kept a very regular schedule, and he maintained that even though he was traveling, which is quite amazing. He would just, wherever he was, whatever his schedule was, he would go into it at the new time. And he didn't really think about jet lag. And nobody can understand how he did it other than being very transcendental. But he did it somehow. And, he had a time every morning he would go for walks. And I don't know if you know the story, but in Prabhupada's generation, I don't get the impression that exercise was such a big thing. And so Prabhupada, I think he had a stroke, or anyway, he was in the hospital. And the doctor came, and I think the doctor was like half drunk. It was a holiday weekend in America, and this was the only doctor they could get. They thought Prabhupada was seriously ill, and the doctor said, the old man needs to walk to get out. He's just sitting all day. So Prabhupada thought about it, and he said, yeah, the doctor has spoken wisely. And so from that point, every day Prabhupada walked, like a half hour or so, or 45 minutes, whatever it was. 6, yeah, maybe a half hour. He would walk every day. At 6 o'clock, he would leave the temple. At early in the morning, by 1 or 2, or 12, yeah, he would wake up and translate. By 6, and then he would chant his rounds, and by 6 he would walk. 7, greet the deities. 8, give class. 9, take prasadam. I believe he would answer his letters. Then have massage. By noon, he would have lunch. After that, he would rest a little, because he only rested a few hours. After that, he would meet with devotees or guests. It's just like it was amazingly regulated. So, if you can regulate your life in a way where you can take care of all the important things in your life, that's fantastic. And I think you all, over time, maybe you know now or gradually, you'll know what you need. I want to stress another thing, which is maybe not often stressed. It's important. That you all have natures, and there's certain things that you like to do. And when you don't do something, sometimes you burn out from not doing it. Like we always talk about burning out from overdoing it, but also you can burn out from not doing it. So, for example, I don't know if any of you have this experience, but let's say you're a writer, you're an artist, you are a musician, you are a manager, an engineer, something. You have a strong propensity or tendency to do something. And if you don't do it, you could actually burn out from not doing it. Any of you have that experience? Like, you need to do something. If you don't, you go crazy after a while. If you're a musician, you definitely do. Because I am one of sorts. And I know, if I don't do music, it's like, there's a part of me that feels like it just died. Like there's a lack. Or maybe you like to cook, or you like to paint. Whatever it is, that's a very good way to burn out. Maybe we should retitle this class, How to Burn Out in 3 Easy Lessons. Well, that's one great way to do it. There's something that you have a strong propensity for, and you don't do it. Another great way to burn out is through trying to renounce more than you're able, trying to give up things that you need, that you can't give up. Like it's too difficult, I want to be renounced. So, you have this desire in your mind. Your mind says, I should renounce. But you're not actually able to do it, but you want to do it. And so, sometimes if we try to give up something that we're not mature enough yet to give up, or renounced enough to give up, that can be a problem. Because then we end up missing it. So that's something to consider. So you can all consider these things. So that's kind of Yeah, I guess that's a start. How long do we plan to go? For like an hour? Is that the idea? Yeah. Why don't we take some questions now? Because I think that's a good basic foundation. And I'm sure you must have questions. And if you don't have a question, you can ask me why you don't have a question. Because I really want to know what's in your mind and heart so that I can address it. I'm not sure I addressed exactly. I guess maybe what Amrita Radhika wanted me to address was self-care. In order to show up the best for the world, show up the best for others, you need to first care for yourself. Compassion for others has to compassion. You cannot have compassion and neglect yourself. That's the point. If you have compassion for yourself, then it falls short. So caring for yourself is part of the practice of sadhana, a part of the practice of Krishna consciousness. And caring for yourself includes creating boundaries. Naturally, right? Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting discussion because one of the great ways, I have one more thing I want to say. One of the great ways to burn yourself out is to focus on something you don't like. Have you ever done that before? I don't like this, and you focus on it. I don't like that person, and you focus on what you don't like about the person. I don't like this about the government, you focus on it. And you become more frustrated and more frustrated. So you're going to focus on what you don't like, focus on it so you can do something about it. But if you can't do anything about it, you just get frustrated and you kind of burn yourself out. Okay, I'm finished. Who has a question? Have a microphone or what?
Can you hear us now?
I hear you, and I hear the echo also. Anyway, give someone the microphone and I'll let you know if I can hear it. No, it's perfect. It's perfect. Perfect.
This is what I'm speaking to. Okay. Thank you. The question I have is, this week I overheard a class that someone else was listening to, so I don't know the speaker, but it was ISKCON. And what jumped out at me was that they said that bhakti means always available for service. So my question around that is, what tips would you give? Because I feel like you've answered the question with what you've already presented, but I guess what tips would you give to within our heart, in my heart, to balance that requirement or that teaching amongst devotees, amongst us, with what you've spoken about today?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. Now I can hear myself. So I guess you have to turn the mic off, right? Yes. What I would say about this is that we're dealing with an ideal. So yes, I 24/7, Prabhupada would talk about 24/7 engagement in Krishna service, whatever the Guru asks we should do, and so forth. And so that's the ideal, but what if you can't do that? And what if you try to do that and the result is you just burn yourself out? So we can accept something in principle before we're able to do it practically, at least fully. So it's like, okay, I understand that, like in your life, in the life of every devotee, there's going to be so many things you understand that are the highest ideal that you can't do. Like oftentimes, when Prabhupada was asked, should we do this or that, he would always give the highest ideal. And sometimes that highest ideal was like nobody could do it. Or very few could do it. But we understand, okay, that's the highest ideal. I'm just not able to do it now. And I acknowledge that. And it's just the reality of where I'm at. And so I have to accept that. Now, you might say, well, what if I'm in a situation where I'm being called to do something? Yeah, fine, go do it. But if it's like, you've done your service for the day, and every day they say, can you do another 8 hours? You just say, I can't maintain that. I'm doing my 6 hours or whatever. That's what I can maintain. Or if you want me to do another hour, I can do that. But beyond that, I can't. It's like the first point I was making. It's just accepting the reality of it. This is who I am and where I'm at. So we should be able to lift 100 kgs, but I'm not ready yet. Again, it's a balance. It's a balance. This is one of the interesting things about spiritual life, is that you'll learn about what the highest standard is, and you'll want to do it, and then you'll find over time what you can do and what you can't do. And it's like you can't, in other words, you can't be more renounced than you are. You can't be more advanced than you are. You can't be more this or that than you are. So you have to be able to calibrate where your limitations are. But not be antagonistic to the idea. Yeah, I would like to do anything at any time. But unfortunately I'm not able. But I'm not against the idea, and that's what I'm working towards. Then you could say, but I should be able to, whatever Krishna wants, or whatever that statement was, we should be ready to do whatever. But yeah, I'm ready to do my sadhana in the morning. That's also part of what I need to do. So, and then sometimes, when situations come and you can't do something, you just discuss and explain. I'm at my capacity right now. I don't think I can do more, without it having negative consequences. Maybe you can do more. Maybe it needs to be discussed. Does that answer your question, or does that confuse you more? It's okay. So it's a very interesting thing. I was very, like when I became a devotee, to me it was like, yes, I've been looking for this for a million lifetimes. So I was very just gung-ho about it, And I think many of us were like that. But the problem was, we were gung-ho about the ideal, and we didn't know how fast we can run and how long we could run. And then we found out in the middle of the race, when we fell over and vomited, that I went too fast, too soon. But we didn't know. So what you're all going to experience, all of us are going to experience, is that we're going to learn about pure devotional service. And we're going to become very encouraged to do it, but we're going to have to confront our own limitations. So I'll give you an example of my life. When I was a young devotee, I was very attracted to renunciation. To me, it was like, yeah, why not just renounce everything? I mean, just use this life solely for Krishna. Why anything? Just like go around the world and preach, and why anything else? And so when I was young, I wrote Prabhupada, I think it was 23 or 24, and I was already married. Probably 24, I think. I was married when I was 22. I can't even remember him. Is that funny? Anyway, I was very renounced. Anyway, I wanted to be renounced, and so I wrote Prabhupada, can I take sannyas? And so, about 6-8 months ago, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, this is really a problem. If you come to Vrindavan and Govardhana in February, we're going to talk about this. We're having a retreat. You're all invited. You can charter a plane and just all go together. But we're going to talk about this very interesting phenomena, that what you'll find in your spiritual life is that you become attached to certain ideals. You go, this is beautiful. I really like this. Like if you learn about humility, you think humility, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. But then you look at yourself and say, yeah, I know humility is beautiful, but I love it when people appreciate it. I love to be honored. I like to be in the center of the attention. It's like, well, what's going on here? You love humility and you love to be the center. It's a contradiction. And so I was like, I want to be sannyasi, and I idealize it, but I didn't have the qualification. I really wasn't renounced. I was like renounced in my mind to the idea. This is a beautiful idea. Just give up everything for Krishna. But I couldn't fully do it, not at the age of 24. And we all have that. Like we have these, like, this is a beautiful idea. I want to do it. But when you try to do it, you realize I'm on a different level. Like where my head is and where my heart is are often two different places. And so as I advance in Krishna consciousness, I decrease that gap. But in the beginning, for many, many years, maybe most of your life, there will always be these, like, I like to be like this, but I'm like this. And if we go for, I like to be like this, and we just go for it, and we're not qualified for it, then many men took sannyas and then they got married. You're supposed to get married and then take sannyas. They took sannyas and then they got married because they couldn't sustain. Did you know that? It's brahmachari, grihastha, vanapras, sannyas. For them it was brahmachari, sannyas, grihastha, vanapras, sannyas. They went around in a circle. So I wrote an article about it because I was trying to reconcile in my mind. I said, like, what's going on within me that I'm like so split between two things? And we're gonna do some exercises in Vrindavan, where you all get to look at things in your life which are polar opposites. I love renunciation, but I want to get married and have 10 kids in a mansion. Like there's like two opposites. Like, why am I like that? And where's that spot in the middle where you can find your peace, where you kind of blend both together? We're all like that. So that's part of the answer to your question. You have to blend your ideal with where you're at and find a balance that kind of covers both sides, your material needs and your spiritual goals. I think that makes a little more sense, doesn't it? Okay, yeah, it's interesting. It's just a reality we all go through. So, questions?
This is just for so this is for the recording for people online.
Okay.
This is so you can.
Okay. So I don't need to. Hare Krishna Gurudev. It's Divi Shakti. Very nice to see you. I've experienced quite a bit of burnout in the last couple of weeks. And so I dropped a lot of my services and I stopped going to the temple in the morning so I could sleep. And although I'm finally sort of getting caught up on my sleep and feeling rested, it's had a detrimental effect on my sadhana. So now I'm finding it extremely hard to get motivated, to be enthusiastic, to come back to service, to come back to the temple, to do the morning program. When I spoke to Ajita Prabhu about the whole situation, he said that I had sort of slipped into ignorance, and that's what happens when you tend to sleep a lot. So I don't know if I've got a question, but do we need to put a limit on that recovery period, or do we need to sort of go, okay, I'm going to give myself a little bit of time out before it starts to have a negative effect on the sadhana?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's
it can have a negative effect. Ideally you want to come to this place where that never happens again. So you're always, and it seems like, you just have to be careful how you recover. That would be my answer, because I've been there before myself. Because I was running a temple and it was very difficult, and I burnt myself out. And I think I had temple president PTSD, because I made a vow that I wasn't going to manage anything. I was just like, I don't want to manage. So I don't think, throwing out the baby with the bathwater is the solution, but I think possibly for you to recover well, you have to have a clear path, so you know that when you get back into action, the same thing's not going to happen, because I sense that fear is there. Both, that, like, I'm recovering, but I need to recover in a way that I don't, like you say, go into the mode of ignorance and lose my taste for sadhana. Because the idea of recovering is that you would regain your taste, but regain a perspective so that you could enter it in a healthy state in a way that you wouldn't burn yourself out again. So you really need to, maybe you've already done it, trace your steps back, like how did that happen? Where did I go wrong? Why? Both externally and internally, because a lot of burnout is also internal, how we're processing something, our reactions to things. Like sometimes, you ever see someone get like really frustrated and burned out over nothing? It was like they're making a big deal about something and it really wasn't. But it's how they perceived it, and so they were burning themselves out for no reason. So that can also be part of it, so we want to reflect on that, if that's part of what's happening, possibly. My recuperation period after Temple President was just to go into services that I was really enthused about in a very healthy environment for me. And that was the most healing. Avoiding it wasn't the solution. It was just going back into something which was healing. Some sadhana, temple program, and so forth, that was done in a way that really rejuvenated me. Because it's kind of counterproductive if you leave all that. If you left all that so you could just sit home and chant 64 rounds a day, yeah, fine. But if it's to leave all that to zone out, then it's not going to help you. It could make it worse if it goes too long. Does that make sense? It's like you want to get away and do something that's rejuvenating, and then go back into service with a schedule that is, and service you like in a schedule that works for you, so that you get inspired from it. But that's something you have to navigate and figure out. But I've done that before, just retreated, but my retreat was to go more deeply into my Krishna consciousness. So like, okay, I don't want to see anybody because I just want to study, and if I see everybody, we'll talk. Something like that. Or I just want to chant more and sort of rejuvenate them. And then I go back into the battlefield, but take a position that's sustainable. That's the best I can say for now, because I don't know all the details. Well, maybe I do know some, but not everything. Does that help, or you want to ask more questions? Give me more details. Going into the mode of ignorance will not rejuvenate you. Going into the mode of goodness will rejuvenate you. That's the point.
Hare Krishna Gurudev.
Okay, you're
Thank you very, very much for this class. I'll second that it's also wonderful to see you. So you were talking about the red flag, how to almost set up a red flag as to when you're approaching this fried out, burnt out feeling, but then having taken on certain responsibilities, whether it's through the ashram or work or service to the temple, there's certain responsibilities. So how can I maintain the responsibilities without dropping it, but also still trying to push forward and increase or intensify what I should be doing? Because I guess I've got a habit of being an all or nothing kind of person, but Yeah, finding that red flag, saying I need to back off, but also I've got responsibility, so I can't fully back off. How to weigh that up, I guess.
Yeah. Well, generally, the general principle, maybe not applicable everywhere. General principle is, if you really relish what you're doing, you have more stamina. And if you don't like what you're doing, you can burn out more easily. So the same thing done by two devotees. One devotee's getting, at the end of the day, he's like completely energized, and one devotee's totally burnt out. So, I mean, there could be other factors other than your proclivities towards the service. It could be, your relationships, how you're looking at the service, and so forth. Your own consciousness, how the state of your own consciousness with which you approach the service. The sangha you're getting from, there's so many factors that could relate. I'm trying to think of different ways people burn out where they shouldn't burn out, but it's just they're the wrong attitude or it's the wrong service. Like for me, it was just the wrong service. Even when I was temple president, the last maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 months I did it. It was actually quite easy. There wasn't a lot going on. But just the nature of the service and my nature were incompatible. So I was just getting frustrated and burned out. But externally, I was living on a beautiful island and, eating lots of beautiful food and nice preaching programs, but it was just not the right place for me. It was not the right, nothing was right about it for me. And so I was burning out, but there's no, externally someone would look and say, well, why are you burned out? Everything's quite easy for you. So that's something to consider. Prabhupada said something interesting. Some devotee was doing a service and then he wanted to change it. And Prabhupada said, and Prabhupada was reluctant because he didn't want us to be whimsical, but Prabhupada said, find a service you can do for the rest of your life and stick to it. And so, let me give you an example of sometimes what my life is like when I travel. Well, maybe you know, because you saw me. But in some places I go, I would do a Bhagavatam class. I'll go to Mangalarti, chant with the devotees, do a Bhagavatam class, do a seminar all day, and they'll go, hey, can you do a kirtan tonight, or can you do a house program? So it's like, we finish the house program like 11 o'clock at night. We start at 4:30 in the morning. And the devotees will say, you must be tired, and I'll say, no, I'm inspired, I'm not tired. And they can't believe, like, why aren't you tired? Because we're all tired. We've been going all day. And I'll say, because I like it. I like to do it, especially kirtan. It gives me energy. I can be very tired and do kirtan, and then I just get energized. So, and if you put a spreadsheet in front of me, within 5 minutes I'll fall asleep. Put these numbers in these columns, add it up, I'll be like, I'll just get dizzy. I'll be like, you can't do this. If you say, give me some business, start a business, 5 minutes, I'll be like, this is boring. So here's a new book, read it. Okay, I'll sit down all day and read it. So it's a blessing if you can find that, whatever that is, it's a blessing. If you can find what that is and create the right environment so that that is done in a way you won't burn out, because you could burn out doing what you like if you're not careful. But generally, for all of us, there's something we can just do all day and not get tired. If we create, the right environment and have the right relationships. So, now if you say, well, I like what I'm doing, but they're pushing me 10 hours a day, and yeah, so you don't have time for your sadhana. You don't have time to exercise, you don't have time to be with your wife, this and that, yeah. And so you love your service, but it's taking time from other things, and then you'll burn out also. So, if you feel like, okay, something's wrong, and like I have the nice service and all that, but something's wrong, figure out what's wrong and correct it. So that sustainability is the key word. Or if it's the wrong service, then it's the wrong service. Sometimes it's the right service with the wrong devotees. Could be. But I don't know all the details of your situation. Those are just some things to consider. Yeah. I have a recording studio, and I've made, as many of you know, I've made many guided meditation recordings to help devotees and help non-devotees, and I really like doing it, and I know something about recording, so I like to get the right equipment, the right voice, the way I want it to sound. And when I do that, sometimes I'm like, I could do that all day, just like create them. And many of these guided meditations I recorded by sitting down and just talking. There was no script. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna do a guided meditation on this, and I start talking. And I have music playing, I'm listening to it, and I'm talking slowly. I have this beautiful studio, and it's like, yeah. For me, that's like, yeah, I love doing that. And so, like when I do it, sometimes I just do it for hours and hours. I go, this is really interesting, how much I like doing this according to my nature. And also doing music and recordings, and of course teaching and creating courses. So when I look at myself, I see, I could burn out doing this, but it would, I'd really have to be neglecting a lot in my life to burn out doing this, because it's so enriching. Is that okay? Helpful? Something? Something? Is that relatable to all of you? Things to think about.
Hare Krishna. So nice to see you again, Mahatma.
Yes.
My question is, if we even find our balance, it's good for us, but when we see so many other people in need, and the group chat's like, can anyone cover this? And you have the time but not the capacity, it can be really overwhelming. And the second part to the question is, how do we process... Sorry.
Can you say that again? The sound isn't good. I'm having a hard time hearing.
Sorry. How do we maintain our balance when we see other people in need? Like, we find our balance, but there are areas of service that really need covering, and we have the time but not the capacity.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then
what to do?
I had one other part to the question. I don't mind if you answer either, but how do we process encouragement from other devotees that are like trying to fuel our enthusiasm, but we're really struggling?
Other devotees who are struggling, trying to curb your enthusiasm?
Like, we're struggling, but they keep giving us encouragement, like, oh my God, you're doing so well, wow, you do so much service, but like in the inside you're like, I really need to slow down and not do this.
Oh, okay. I think it's the same answer. It's a balance between. Well, it's interesting because, like, if you know something can be done and needs to be done, and you can do it, and you don't, that could also burn you out because you're just like, I should do that, right? So that is. I'll tell you a story. Maybe it'll help you. I just heard Ridananda Maharaj. He was talking about how he wanted, after he was GBC and then he retired. He'd been GBC, God, since he was probably like 25 or something, or maybe even 24. And so, probably after like 45 years he retired, or 40 years. And he was one of the original gurus. So he said, I just felt like I just want to retire, and I'll write books. And, not worry about the management of ISKCON. And he said that's what most people do when they're old. They just retire. They don't, go traveling around the world and starting new projects. And then he said, I thought, when I meet Prabhupada, he's going to say, well, there were so many problems in the movement. Why didn't you do anything? So he said, I couldn't retire. So it's like, it would be nice to retire, but then you have to meet Prabhupada, who's going to ask you, why didn't you do anything? And that guilt is weighing in the back of your mind. So it's kind of like part of boundaries and self-preservation is balancing both of those, like what's too much against how am I going to feel if I don't do it? If I know this service isn't getting done or done well, and I could do it and I don't, how's that going to affect me? So you're kind of juggling both of those things, You ever heard this saying? It's like sometimes it's more difficult, like you should do something, but you don't want to do it because it's difficult. But then it's more difficult not to do it than it is to do it because you suffer more by not doing it. So it can be like that. But I think, this is what I think. I think that as you meditate on what we're talking about, you'll start to develop an internal compass, and you'll just know. You'll know, like, you go, no! It's like super soul. It's just like, no, that's too much. Or, yes, go do it. You can do this. You'll kind of know yourself, and you'll know what you need, and you'll know what's too much. And sometimes it doesn't happen until you're a little older. But I think with classes like this, it can help you become more sensitive. Like some people in your situation might actually need to do those services that nobody's doing. That might be what inspires them. It's possible, right? I'm like, no, I need to. That's where I get my energy, by filling in the gaps. So as you learn more about yourself, I think you'll be able to answer these questions quite naturally. You'll just know. And the second one, I didn't understand. The second one was like, you're saying people are telling you to do more, pushing you to do more? Is that it? But say it again. Connection.
So you're being encouraged by the devotees that
The connection.
inside is struggling. Like they're not seeing the struggle, they're just seeing the service, they're not seeing you. Sense.
The connection's not good. Nishinga, maybe you can try to say it.
If inside you're struggling, if you're really full and you can't handle any more, and yet
Okay.
people around you or the devotees around you are encouraging you because they don't see that struggle, they just see your ability to.
Oh yeah.
So how do you balance?
Yeah, I just have to tell them. I'd like to do more, but this is all I can maintain right now. I've hit my limit. I'd like to eat 8 chapatis, but I can only eat 2. I can't eat any more. And it's not that I like this, and I'd want to do more, but it's just where I'm at right now. And so, let people know who are pushing you. Like, thank you, that's really encouraging. I wish I could do more, but I know my limits right now. And I'm just want to be sustainable, maintain myself, and then, gradually, maybe I can do more. But it's kind of like, it's like a paradigm, like doing more is not always the goal. Being more Krishna conscious is the goal, right? So if I do more and I'm less Krishna conscious, that's not really the goal, is it? So I think the paradigm of like doing more is better, is good, but not always good. Because the more may not always be better. The more may burn you out also, right? So it's just like this idea of more is better. Bigger is better, like that. More is better. Yeah, sometimes less is better, because then you can go more internal and become stronger, if needed. I think that's where the problem is coming. It's the paradigm. Like always do more and more. Isn't it? You have that paradigm floating around in your heart. So what's the point? The point of doing everything is you become Krishna conscious. So that's your compass. Then I think you'll be able to navigate better, and be able to tell people this is what the best I can do for now. Anything else? Yeah. Can you come up front, or so I can see you? If that's possible. Yes. Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hopefully I can hear you.
Thank you so much for this wonderful class. It's been very enlightening. My question is, how do you deal with spiritual burnout caused by the loss of a parent?
Oh, by loss of a parent. I don't think there's like a salve you can put on your heart and it's just going to like heal the wound. I think it's just time. It's just going to take time. And part of the healing process is to not subdue your emotions, but allow yourself to go through that pain and be with good friends and association who are supportive and understanding. Just, like the problem is like, okay, you know what Krishna says, right? You shouldn't lament for the living nor the dead. So, like, okay. In theory, yes, but when you lose a loved one, how is that possible? Oh, let me say something else. Yeah, that I wouldn't say that lamentation is the problem. Your success in dealing with this is not that you'll overcome the pain of that situation anytime soon. It's something you'll have to live with, and gradually it will lessen over time. The challenge more is to not just completely collapse in your life when things like this happen, but to be able to maintain some level of stability in your life. That's where I would focus. That's where I think you should focus your attention. I have to, going on with your life as best you can in the most stable way is both the sign of that's how you want to deal with this, and it's what will help you get through it more than anything. But like trying to suppress the emotion or transcend it, you just need to grieve for it. It's just natural. But if you can maintain your life in some stable way, that's the sign, at least of what a devotee would strive for: stability. Prabhupada told a story about Arjuna. Arjuna's son, as you know, was killed on the battle of Kurukshetra. And Arjuna lamented. And a man asked Prabhupada, well, Arjuna's a pure devotee, why did he lament? And Prabhupada said, well, he lost his son, so it's natural that he would lament. But Prabhupada said, the sign that he was a pure devotee is he didn't stop fighting, in spite of his lamentation. So, if you can continue your life, that's a sign of your strength. That despite what happened, you go on. And that's what your mother would want. That's what everyone would want. And yeah, that's what I would say. Is that all right, or you have more to ask about that? Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. You've kind of touched on elements of this so far, and for someone that's gone through a bit of a burnout and has found it really hard to sort of come back to where they once were, and have sort of let the mode of ignorance and stuff take over for some time as well, and it feels like a long road to come back from. Like what you're sort of saying is sort of going down that path it's more difficult to sort of come back, and it feels like it's kind of tough to come back into that mood, that consciousness, that same place that personally speaking I once sort of felt. So I was just wondering if you've got any advice for someone that has had a bit of a burnout, did want to throw it all in and just like, hit the road and go to the beach and just cruise around and re-engage, and then all these old desires that come flooding back, and I'm just like, in this wash of like constantly pulled with all these other desires. But I know from my core that this is the bit, like this is what I've been looking for. So it's that constant toggle back and forth. It's kind of tiring.
Do you think you bit off too much initially, more than you could chew?
Yeah, I feel like what you're talking about as capacity goes. I'd never really self-reflected as much since coming here, and I feel like I wasn't really aware of my own capacity or what I was feeling internally. I would push myself a lot further than what I probably could do or what I could have done. I kind of pushed myself too hard for too long, and then it kind of snapped a little bit.
Yeah. So maybe you just have to come back on a different level, which is something that wouldn't burn you out, that would inspire you. And then from there, you will gradually, over time, get back to where you were previously. But, if you try to get back to where you were previously and you're not really qualified to be there, it's the same thing's going to happen. So you have to find that position where you're like, okay, this is comfortable. This is what I can do now. And not allow other devotees who are doing more to intimidate you. And not that they would intimidate you with their words or actions, but you may be intimidated by their devotion, thinking, oh, I should be like them, right? So that becomes a problem. Then you try to be like them, then if you can't, you burn out. So you want to avoid that. And just acknowledge, okay, what I need may be less than what I want, but this is how I will progress, slowly. That's the sense I get. Maybe you went too fast, too soon. And it's kind of like the same situation as Devi Shakti. It's like, there's like a little fear of going back into it because it's like, oh, I'll get burned out again. But you can't go back into it in the same way because it didn't work. Right? And the only way you could go back in the same way is if your consciousness is different. And it's not going to, like you say, it's not going to be solved sitting on the beach. At least not every day. Maybe for a few days, yeah. But not even sitting on the beach, but not sitting in the mode of ignorance. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to rejuvenate yourself in passion and ignorance. It's all sattva guna will rejuvenate yourself. But everyone has to feel comfortable where they're at so that they can remain there, because one of the biggest challenges we face in our spiritual life is just maintaining it throughout our life. And if it's like all or nothing, it's not going to work. I think it's really kind of a trick of Maya to get us to try to lift more weight than we can, and then just go, okay, I'm finished with weightlifting. Forget it. I'll just do nothing. That's not a good solution. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Does that relate to you?
Yeah, totally. Because it was like a switch off. I just wanted to stop everything in my life. I wanted to stop and just switch it all off and just go and lay on the beach for the next 2 months.
Yeah, you switched it off too fast. One extreme or the other is not the solution. That's why I began by saying the middle. That was the first thing I said, was the middle. There's somewhere in the middle for all of us that's going to work. And if you go too far to the left or the right, or if you're looking at it this way, too low or too high, it doesn't work anymore, because it's not. Going too low doesn't fulfill your heart, because it's kind of like you'll just do what you did before you were a devotee. And going too high too fast, you'll burn out. So you have to find that place in the middle where you're happy and where it's sustainable, and you can grow from there. It's just somewhere where you can go up from. If you go too high, you'll just crash. And if you have this all or nothing attitude, then you just want to give up everything. That's not good. Human life is too valuable to just give up everything, right? I think, it's good if you're in this situation to study Prabhupada's books and and take some counsel from senior devotees and get some clarity about what you need and what's too much and what's too little. The problem is when you're in this state, it's like Maya says, great, we got you. So now, Maya just knocked you in the face. And if you know anything about boxing, it's like, if you get one good punch that dazes the guy, then you can just beat him up because he doesn't know what's going on. So you don't want to get in a situation where you allow yourself to get punched so much that you can't fight back. Right? So that's dangerous. So, if Maya bewilders you enough, says, oh, I've got you now, I can do anything I want with you. But if you have, so you don't just want to give up on everything, that doesn't work. And if you have an all or nothing attitude, try to understand that that's not the way the world works. Is that okay?
Yeah,
At
that's
least
great.
for now?
That's really nice. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Hare Krishna. Just a thought. It's kind of seems like burnout's an inevitable factor in Krishna consciousness. Like it's just a guarantee. It seems like, but when coaching or seeing new people join the movement or trying it out, it's kind of a little bit frustrating, I guess, and I'm sure you've seen it for many years, but even here coming to the farm, you see a lot of people coming and taking it up. And there's kind of an ecstasy in riding that razor's edge of pushing really hard, like go hard for Prabhupada kind of vibes. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, how can you say, hey, just simmer down a little bit and just, play it out for the long game as opposed to just pushing it and then hope that they don't leave?
Well, like in America we have the Krishna House program, which is kind of like what you're doing with Krishna Pad. And they're very careful not to burn people out. Very, very careful. So they have like 5 hours of service every day. The morning program doesn't start till 6:30. And they have the weekends off. It's pretty hard to burn out on that program. And I never met anyone in Krishna House who burned out. So I think, the inevitable burnout may be due to bad management. And like you say, we're so ambitious to do so much, and there's so much to do. But it has to be moderated by intelligence and mature guidance. And then I think we need to phase out burnout and phase in sustainability. I think that's really important. So that's something you can all consider in your services and in your association. Okay? We went overtime. I charge for overtime. I'm gonna take dinner now, so I'm trying to get rid of you all.
You want to take darshan?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Super. Anytime. Wonderful. Giriraj. Radha Girir. Is it Radha Giridhari or Govardhana Dhari? Haribol. Fantastic. Nice to be with all of you in New Govardhana. We'll see you in, okay, where are we at? We'll see you in January. We'll see you in 3 months. Yeah, pretty much like exactly 3 months or so. Yeah, we're going to take a few days. And we'll have more discussions. Okay? I'm going to go now. Hare Krishna. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hari Bol.